to Unraveled Game Thoughts. I am Wade, and I'm deciding to start a new series called Unraveled Ravings. So basically, I just needed something I could record that was not going to require me to set up a game and play an entire game just to post a video. Um, I enjoy doing that, but with work and family, it's often hard uh, to get all that laid out and done and edited in a timely manner. So I thought I would just do this Unraveled Ravings, where I can just talk about something that seems interesting to me in the board gaming world, and it may or may not be interesting to you. So we'll see how this goes. But what I started doing, and I have Board Game Geek up here, is going through the last 10 years of games and just trying to decide what would I think are the top 10 games for each of the last 10 years. So I did an advanced search on BGG, and then I would do put in the year here, 2012 to 2012, and that's the furthest year I went back. And then I will take out the expansions and I do a search. So I'm not necessarily looking for what are the top 10 games, and some of these I'm definitely including in my list. Um, but and some of these I have to include because I know they bear some weight and significance in the board gaming world, even if I haven't played them. There are much better knowledgeable game folk out there that would do this completely different. But this is how I did it. So the number one thing, I don't know this number one thing, this is not necessarily in order, but one of the things I'm looking at is longevity and durability as a ranked game. So if a game has been around for a long time and is still a good game certainly after 10 years, this gets harder to use this metric once I get closer to, say, like 2018, 2019, it's hard to know what the longevity of a game will be. It's only 2 or 3 years removed. Its place in the game community, I didn't go as far back as, when Catan came out, but even though Catan is not a game that I would consider, to me, it's not a top 10 game personally, and it plays a pivotal role in the modern board gaming industry. I would have to include it in a top 10 of the year it came out. I cannot remember off the top of my head which year it came out, but it was pretty pivotal. So that one would probably make my list because of its place in the game community, even though personally it is not my favorite game. If it's a foundation game, so um, it introduced a significant mechanic or some interesting interaction of mechanics in a unique way for whatever year I'm looking at. Foundation game, I don't necessarily mean that it's a gateway game, but maybe it could be. Maybe that's a good, it was a game that proved to be a great gateway game for what it does. I think the year that Furnace came out, I want to say 2019 or 2020, I think I have Furnace on there, and largely for that reason, because even though Furnace isn't not probably one of my top 10, if I'm picking my favorite games for that year, it's probably not on my top 10. But for a gateway game that gets people to learn about engine building, Furnace is absolutely foundational, I would say. My fourth thing is if it's best in class, it's just, man, that's the best deck builder. It's still the best deck builder or something of that nature. I'm going to include it on there probably. It at least is going to get some solid nomination consideration. My opinion of the game does matter. It's number 5. It's definitely, if I feel or think highly of the game, I'll include it on there, or at least I included it in the, it's at least an honorable mention to some degree or another. And then the elegance and the streamlinedness of the game, which basically, if it comes down to, I've got my 10 games, I'm trying to decide between these last two, all other factors seem fairly equal. This one's prettier than that one, I'm going to go with the prettier one. Or this one is, maybe that one's not as pretty, but this one over here is just a nice, smooth implementation of a game. This one's a little choppier. I'm going to go with the more smooth, streamlined experience for that particular game if it's on the list. So those are some things that I'm considering when I go through this. You can probably see the BGG page here, but I am not going to. It's more for a reference and seeing maybe some other ratings and average reviews and things like that, but I'm not going to do that for every game. So let's get into the 2012 top 10 list. What did I think? So my number 10 was Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar. And it actually falls down here at number 48 overall. So it's ranked very highly among games. Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar, comes in number 2 for that year. So that is a pretty highly thought of game. I personally think that most likely this game will begin to fall out of the certainly the top 50 and probably eventually out of the top 100. I think it's just going to end up getting pushed out by games that end up doing what it does maybe better. Although, when I said games that don't necessarily have, I don't know if anybody's done it better, that rotating mechanism with the gears. I don't know that I've seen that in a ton of other games. Um, I saw that the action selection in Terracotta Army has something. It's not quite like that, but it's a little bit like that. I know Whistle Mountain uses a little bit of that rotating option on the game board. As far as a heavy game goes, or a heavier game, Tzolk'in probably falls into the heavier game category when it comes to that particular mechanism and how those wheels and gears work. And it's well designed. It's a creatively designed game, and when it came out, I mean, I think that was very unique. And even today, if that came out today, I don't think it would be a terribly ununique game. My understanding is, and I haven't done all the delving into the details of this, is that there might be some snafus with some unbalancedness in the game somewhere. And I don't know how much the expansion might fix for that. But number 10 for that year, to 2012 or 2012, yeah. So that's my number 10. My number 9 is Yedo. I had not heard about this game until I think last year at BGG Con. A friend of mine gave me his copy of the game. He was getting a deluxe version, and that's the first I'd heard of Yedo. I've never actually played a full game of Yedo yet. I've played 2 games that we had to stop because we couldn't get through it, and on both times we were learning. So we may have gotten 9 rounds in or something on the second one, but we still had to quit. Everybody, half the people had to leave because they were timed out, and we had been playing for 4 hours or something at that point. But this is a good game. Um, I like, and part of the reason I include it on this list is that after 10 years, a decade, it's still a popular game, and a lot of people got the upgraded version. I don't know that it is in that ballpark where I want the upgraded version. It's not among my favorite games per se, but I do like it. I think it's a fun game, and I have no problem playing a 4 to 6 hour game that is as fun as Yedo. So one day, I hope to actually finish the game, but uh, we'll have to get to that point eventually, where we have 6 hours to sit down. That's often hard with kids and work and all the other things that go on in life. Just finding a good evening for a 6 hour game is tough. I think that if enough people know the game, it will go a little faster. That's my impression. Okay, number 8, Tokaido. It is down here somewhere. Let me scroll through and see if I can find it. There it is, all the way down, 625. 6.7. It's not a bad rating. Um, I like this game. I've never played it myself, but this is 2012, and this seemed like a very smooth and elegant game, and it looked like a game that I would enjoy playing. So this is just one where I don't know anybody who has this game, and it's not one that I feel inspired to go out and buy or purchase or chase after. But it does look interesting, and if someone ever brings it to the table, I'd be happy to host and play it. This is one I might consider adding to my games I'd like to try out at BGG-Con in 2022, this might be one that I will consider because it does look like a very fun game. I think it might be on the lighter side. Oh, let's go back down here to it and see what the weight is. Do we have a weight? I think I have to go into the game here to see the weight. So let's see what the weight is. 1.75. So pretty light. Yeah, not a real heavy game. 2 to 5 players, but looked pretty fun. I don't think it would be hard to learn the rules and to get this one to the table. Should I be in the same room with it? Number 6, Lords of Waterdeep. It's ranked number 80 overall. 7.6. This is another game I have never played. Don't know much about it. It looks like it's a narrative-driven, sort of almost dungeon crawly sort of thing. But I have friends who either own this game or have played it. I know it comes up on podcasts that I'll listen to and is pretty pretty common as far as a game that I hear among other gamers as being very good, and they enjoy playing it, and they'll go back and play it again. So that's my number 7. My number 7, 10, 9, 8, 7. Yep, we're on 6. Okay, so number 6. I might be negatively influenced, possibly, on this one. Negatively, not meaning that it's bad, but just like there's some bias here because I listen to uh, the brain game. Is that right? Board Game Brain, the podcast, and they play Avalon. I think every time there is a podcast from them, they talk about how they played Avalon. So I think it's something they play every single game night. I have never played this game, but I hear about it. And it seems that at this point, 2012, this is a pretty significant social deduction game that came into the field during this year, and I feel like it is warranted to be number 6 on my list. Excuse me for a second. and and so yeah, I'm not. I don't play a lot of social deduction games. In fact, I rarely play one good social deduction game. I've had a few that have come through my collection, but have gotten curated out because they were not in my family's wheelhouse of games they enjoyed playing. So there you go. Number 5, Android Netrunner, which is, where did it fall on this in this sorting? And this one I think is making a comeback. It's one that I am. There it is, Android Netrunner, 7.6. Yeah, not 6.7. So it's number 3, 67 overall. I believe there's a pretty good fan base for this. I've heard it mentioned a few times in the last couple of weeks. I've not played it myself, but I do like card games, and this seems like a pretty popular one that has still has a following 10 years after it came out. It's not disappeared into the background like so many other card games have. And I think there's still some fan-made content coming out there that adds to the game. So there you go. That is Android Netrunner. That's my number 5 for 2012. Number 4, I put Keyflower. I've played Keyflower a couple of times on BGA. I am not good at it. I have not figured out exactly how all those mechanisms work together terribly well, but I recognize that there is something unique about the way Keyflower works. And I had to include it on this list because I don't know that I've quite seen another game that does it quite the way Keyflower does. And this is a game I can see myself coming back to and at least trying more. What I need to do is sit down with the rule book. This is not a game I've sat down and really read through a rule book. And I sometimes when I'm playing a game on BGA, I just kind of jump in, let me learn it as I go. I might glance at a very short summary. And this is one that I need a more thorough explanation I know Rodney Anderson has a great explanation of the playthrough. I probably need to go watch that again and then try it again on BGA. But I think it's significant in the board game field. It's still in the top 100 at 86, which is pretty stinking good, and a 7.5 rating. So a lot of people like this game and really enjoy it. It's one that I think if I had in my collection, I probably would keep it because of its unique gameplay. A lot of times, if games have a unique gameplay aspect to them, I like to keep them even if they're not my favorite game, because it's like, oh, one day I might feel like pulling that particular game out again and playing it. And if there's not another game like it, it's unlikely I'll see this as much unless just lots of people own it. So that's my number 4. Now we're getting into top 3. So, number 3, and I'll be honest, I debated these top 3 quite a bit. In fact, one of them, I wasn't 100% sure I was going to put it in the top 3, but I ended up going with it. But the first one, number 3, is Robinson Crusoe Adventures on Cursed Island. I love this game. Now, this is not a game I can just get out and throw on the table and set up real fast. It's got a lot of bits and pieces. It takes some setup. But man, I have a couple of game nights I've had where we've played this game and we've had nail biter experiences trying to get to a win. I really enjoy it. Now, where I think this game is hard is solo. I've played that first scenario probably 15 times. I have never won once. Now, I'm going to call out my brother here. Mark says he has played it and won every single time and thought it was easy. I am really curious if that's legit. From what I've read and what I've heard, this is a super hard game. I will use this game in jokes about, oh, do we want to play something where we all can die together? Because it's so hard. Now, multiplayer I've won, and I think the multiplayer experience is really where it shines, even more so than the solo. But the solo is super hard. And I've played with Friday and the dog almost every single time when I do solo. Mark says he's beaten it multiple times without using either of those. I don't understand how you can do that. So I might be playing it wrong. Maybe I'm doing something that's making it extra hard on myself. I'm pretty sure the last time I played this game, I read through the rules several times trying to make sure I'm not like gypping myself on getting wood here or getting something there. And it's just hard. So if you've played Robinson Crusoe Adventures on Cursed Island, you've played the solo, if you find it's easy, please post something in the comments like, oh, there's probably this rule you missed, and this is what usually makes it really extra hard for people. Or, maybe you're like, I think your brother did something wrong. This is a really hard game. I'd love that in the comments, because then I can like point those out to him, because that's fun. But anyway, great game. Loved it. This one easily could have vied for number 1, potentially for this year. Although I might have a harder time arguing in that case. So, but it's 67 overall. Ranked very highly. 7.6. It's a great game. Great game. All right. Number 2, Targi. This is where I probably will get some disagreement. I don't know that other people are going to feel like Targi it should be ranked this high. It's 128, so that's not bad. This is a 10-year-old game, still ranked 128. I think that this game has a really good place in the board gaming world because it's a 2-player only game, and it is, in my opinion, very well designed. I really enjoy playing this on BGA. Usually I like playing other games on BGA that are more than 2 players, but that's where I learned how to play this game with a friend on BGA who taught it to me. And it's great. I will most likely be adding this to my collection at some point in the next couple of years. Largely, I'm just waiting for it to hit a good sale or something like that, or to get a used copy. But I don't see a ton of used copies, honestly. I think people keep this game when they have it. It's really good. I'm guessing that the actual board game is pretty easy to set up, and it's a nice, pleasant smooth, well-designed two-player game, and it seems to be holding its own over time. There aren't a ton of other straight two-player games that I think are as easy to set up, to play, and to just teach as Targi. So there you go. Number one is Terra Mystica. Now let me be clear. I'm not a really big fan of Terra Mystica. I don't really like Terra Mystica that much. I don't really like Gaia Project that much. These are not my favorite games. But Terra Mystica is a well-designed game. It's unique. It definitely holds a special place in the board game community, in my opinion. And I've only been into board games since about 2016, 20. I mean, I played when I was growing up, but like in modern board games where I'm collecting and curating a collection, 2016, 2017, somewhere around there is where I started really diving into this hobby more. And I played Terra Mystica early on. I was like, I don't like it that much. I played it on some platform, maybe not Tabletop Simulator, Tabletopia, I think. Okay, I don't know if I've tried it on BGA. I feel like it's on BGA too. I'm just not a big fan. And Gaia Project, I've probably played 20 times on BGA and maybe once in person. Not a huge fan. And I know it's basically the same system, upgraded a little bit than Terra Mystica. But I feel like I'm compelled to put it at number one. Not because it is number one here, but among all the games, I feel like it probably still carries the highest weight with regard to its role in the board gaming community compared to these other games. And so there are some that probably, might be in that conversation. Perhaps Yedo, perhaps Tzolk'in, perhaps Robinson Crusoe, but I kind of feel like Terra Mystica gets the edge among those games, even though I like some of those other games better than I do Terra Mystica. So that is my 2012 list. In case you are interested in any runners-up, I'll try to divide this, once I get to editing this video, divide the chapters out so you can kind of jump from one game to the next pretty easily. But there were some other games that were in the runner-up category that I didn't include, and just so you know that I thought about them and considered them. Descent, Journeys in the Dark, certainly one I considered. At the end of the day, I didn't feel like it was a good enough game for me to include in a top 10. I've played Journeys in the Dark. I used to own Journeys in the Dark. I played it once and I was like, eh. And it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the worst game ever. It just didn't do it for me. But I considered it. Seasons I really struggled with because I feel like it is one, and I'm not sure where it ranks on the deal here. I thought it came pretty high, 249. So 7.2 rating, pretty good rating. I feel like this one is, when I did a watch of the rules just to catch up because I played it once on BGA, but it'd been a while ago. But this feels like a modern game with the kind of the dice that are designed just for this game, and just the way all the mechanics work together. It feels like a heavier modern day game that might have come out in 2019. Although it's 2.77, so it's not considered terribly heavy. But I think this is one I could see potentially even rising over time. Um, the rules to me come off as a tiny bit fiddly, and that's probably why I ended up dropping it off the list. But it's intriguing. I wouldn't, if I redid this list down the road, I wouldn't be shocked to maybe pull another game out and put this one in instead. Love Letter was a runner-up. Very, I think, important in sort of where it fits in the industry as far as a small box card game that could be played with a small number of players and is pretty easy to get to the table to play. Great filler game. Ginkopolis is one that I considered. Coop, or Coup, I guess it's Coup, not Coop. I considered that one. That one's somewhere up, I thought, higher on the list. Maybe not. Maybe it was on the next page. Oh, there's Coup. So worth considering. Those were my runners up. I don't think any of these others really made the. There wasn't a whole lot else that made the cut, or I even really considered beyond those that I just mentioned. Oh, CO2. I debated CO2, but ultimately elected that it just wasn't enough one way or the other to put in there, although it is Vital Lacerda, and it's one I think of his earlier games. I didn't quite make it. So thank you for listening to my ravings this afternoon. If you have comments, please post them below. If you would be interested in supporting the channel, like to see some different content, then please take a look at my Patreon page and or my Ko-Fi page. Until next time, thank you for joining me at Unraveled Ravings with Unraveled Game Thoughts.